The stores don't know that there's law against selling it to kids. They don't know what's in the magazine. Politicians I've spoken to don't even know what's in it because, again, it's not a Playboy or Penthouse that everybody knows about. Since it got changed to a sex rag, it's flown under the radar for years. So like I say, what I'm trying to do is make people aware, make these politicians and lawmakers aware, and have them enforce their laws against the magazine. It's not brain surgery.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Pleasure to have you along. Miss Victoria Hearst is the founder and chairwoman of Praise Him Ministries out of Ridgeway, Colorado. Miss Hearst is also the granddaughter of the late William Randolph Hearst, founder of the media empire Hearst Corporation. Victoria, welcome to Memphis, Tennessee.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We have something in common. You used to host a radio show, I think you said, for 11 years?
That's right. In the western slope of Colorado, in Montrose, it was called Praise Him.
I guess in the wintertime it can kind of get iffy, huh, with all the snow?
You know what? We are really in the mama bear bed of America. We're not too hot. We're not too cold. We don't get tons of snow. We don't get humidity, praise the Lord, that you poor folks do.
So this is that perfect location.
Oh, absolutely. It's at altitude. I mean, you're at 6,000 and 7,000 feet, so.
Well, we welcome you here on our program today and welcome you to Bot Radio Network. And our listeners have been hearing a series of advertising commercials for some weeks now. We're going to talk about those.
Yeah.
But I really want to get a backstory first before we, continue on and talk about that. You are the youngest of 5 girls. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to know, did you have to fight for position in the family, or did they treat you pretty fairly?
Oh, no. I mean, there was always sibling rivalry. The last 3 sisters, Patty, Ann, and I, we were all 1 year apart. So, of course, it was fighting over possessions and my half of the room and your half of the room, and you get into the fights. We were rather famous for, when we were kids, about getting in fights and screaming at each other, "I hate you," and slamming doors. And so some of our bedroom doors had a few cracks in them from being slammed.
I used to go visit my cousins in Louisiana when I was small, and the 2 sisters would get in these crazy fights. I mean, you would even see guys fight like this. I mean, breaking through doors and slamming things and throwing, whatever.
Yeah, we were good at slamming the door. That was the most aggression that we sort of got into.
You survived.
Yes, we all survived.
Of course, is that one of the reasons why you now have a black belt in karate?
I don't know about that, but you know what? There was a great, again, I'm showing my age, but for those of you who remember, in the 60s, there was a great woman, the first woman private eye, and the show was called Honey West. And she was blonde, of course, and she had a black belt, and she would do, judo with her partner. And I just got the idea. I just thought, I really want to be a black belt. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I started going to a karate dojo, and 5 years later, got my black belt. And that was a lot of hard work and a lot of bruises, but I did it. So I'm a big fan of women learning how to defend themselves.
Now, did you also break boards and do other kind of things with your hands and your feet?
Yeah, no, I can break a board. Breaking a board, actually, a 1-inch board is really actually quite easy to break. You want to break it with the grain. You don't want to break against the grain because you'll break your hand. But if you have enough force and technique, it's really easy to break a board.
Victoria, what was it like growing up as a Hearst in the Hearst name once you discovered really who your family was, as you got old enough to understand the impact that your grandfather had on media and on America?
It's interesting. There's a difference between old money and new money. Old money is money that was made back in the 1800s, early 1900s. And when you grow up with it, it is not such a huge deal. You appreciate it, certainly, but it's not, again, it's not like having that new toy and going, oh boy, I have this, oh boy, I have that. It's a natural part of your life because it's part of the household and part of the culture and part of the family that you're growing up in, and going to movies or going to plays or this or that. Old money tends to be much more practical. Old money doesn't generally do stupid things with the money because they realize that it's been handed down. Somebody worked hard and made it a long time ago. My great-grandfather was the one who started the family fortune. He was a farm boy in Franklin County, Missouri. His family used to sell pigs to the local miners, which is, and he got an interest in mining and engineering. Went out to California during the gold rush, which was, a very dangerous thing to do, and found gold and copper and silver and made the family fortune. So he went from a quintessential American story, success story went from farm boy to millionaire. And came back to Missouri, married his childhood sweetheart, and they had one son named William. And again, William was left the money. He started the media empire. He made more money. That was, run by the family, where it's a private corporation. Again, continues to make money. So money can be made and lost depending on who it's handed down to and how hard they work to keep it.
Growing up, you aspired to be a singer, an actress, a dancer. We mentioned your black belt in karate already.
Triple threat, they call it.
And not to mention you speak Japanese.
Yeah.
But the singing, the acting, the dancing, which you work really hard at too, by the way. What was your dream?
My dream was to be on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous and going to Hollywood parties and being in TV and movies and, the typical actor success story. And it's really funny because clearly God had other plans, because there were times when I could kind of get my foot in the door, but then I would be spit back out. And I used to get very frustrated because I'm just thinking, why can't I get in with the in crowd? Why can't I get these parts why is this just frustrating me? And it's just not quite working. And it's interesting because after I got saved, I was watching T.D. Jakes on TV, and I will never forget that what he said to the congregation there, and it answered my question, because one of my questions was, how come this just isn't working or wasn't working? And he said, I will never forget it, he said, the reason that you never got into the clique or the club, because God knew that would be a distraction to you, and he did not want you there. He wanted you here. And I went, it was the light bulb that goes on. You go, that's why I could never quite get in. That's why it wasn't working. That's why I just always felt blocked.
I mean, even in our unregenerate state, we can look back and see those places where we were protected, that God had his hand.
I never walked away from God as far as saying, I reject you. But, life, the world kind of gets hold of you. And you start to think that some things are okay. You start to think that homosexuality is normal. You start to think that having sex out of marriage is okay. Living with someone is okay. But I always knew that when I started to kind of drift too far one direction, I always, seriously in my heart, felt God's hand on my shoulder guide me back.
Victoria, it was back in 1995 that there was really a turning point in your life. And really it changed the whole destiny of where we are right now. And it really was involving a relationship you had that didn't go too good.
Yeah. There's the old joke of, two of the biggest lies in the world are the check's in the mail and my dog won't bite. The other biggest lie that the devil tells women, and especially young girls, is that sex equals love. So that when you operate your life as a woman thinking that sex equals love, you find a boyfriend, and you think that if we're not being intimate, somehow he doesn't love me. And it's very dysfunctional. And I found a guy who was tall and handsome and a director and an actor. And I thought, boy, this is great. We met in L.A. We're going to be the big power couple. And he had been divorced twice and had a string of ex-girlfriends. And ladies, if you've got a guy who's been divorced twice and has a string of ex-girlfriends, you ain't special. You're going to be another ex-girlfriend. But I thought, I was special. Because, the guy always says, well, it was their fault, and they just suddenly went nuts on me, until you get a good big fat dose of the guy and go, oh, that's why they went nuts on you.
So was he abusive?
He was emotionally and verbally abusive. He was the kind of guy who would be really sweet and then just go cold on you. So you never knew where you stood. Am I okay with him? Am I not okay? Are we secure? Are we not secure? And here was my problem. I was insecure. And I was looking at this guy to make me happy. I've got this man, and this man is going to make me happy. And, God didn't just create us flesh. He created us spirit, because when this flesh dies, the spirit is what lives on. The spirit is the real us. This flesh is just the house we live in until either Jesus comes or, we get hit by a bus. So the spirit is really us. The spirit was made to worship. Now, we're going to worship something. We're either going to worship God, or we're going to worship a man, or stuff, or ourselves, or our jobs. And I just thought, this is, again, sex equals love, and having this guy is going to make me happy. So I literally, to my shock, I had made this man my idol. This guy is going to complete my life, and we're going to be the big power couple and live happily ever after. And then, things started to go south. And I was more and more and more miserable and depressed to where I just couldn't even get out of bed. And crying and this and that. It's just awful. So to make a long story short, finally, the devil made me so miserable that I started watching Christian television.
And somebody gave you a Bible too, didn't they? Or did you buy a Bible?
My friend Roma, in Colorado. I had my condo in New York that this guy was living in with me, and my condo in L.A., and then my Colorado house was a vacation house.
Was he an actor or wannabe actor?
Oh, no, he was, he was a rather successful actor and director. But, he was living off me. And I thought that was fine. As long as he treats me well and loves me, then that's fine. I'll pay all the bills. Boy, sucker. But I finally got so miserable that I called my friend and said, this is awful. I was faking it with everybody. How are you and Bob? Oh, we're great. Oh, we're just wonderful. And inside, my spirit was screaming, no, you're not. You're unhappy. You're miserable. It's awful. But I was embarrassed to tell people that this was going south. So anyway, I finally told Roma, and she'd been taking care of my house in Colorado when I wasn't there. And I said, I'm going to go out to Colorado, and I just need to try and get my head together. She said, I'm going to leave you a Bible. And she left me that pink women's NIV Bible in my kitchen. And I flew home, and I grabbed that Bible and went upstairs. And at that time, it'd been so long, literally since childhood, that I'd actually looked at a Bible, that if you'd asked me what I knew about the Bible, I would have said, like, Jesus and Noah's Ark, and not a whole lot of either. So I took it upstairs, and I literally started reading. My first thought was, I need to hear Jesus. And I just said, just teach me. And I started Matthew 1:1, and for 5 days, I just read through the New Testament. And I read and I cried and I read and I cried and I read and I cried. And God, just showed me in the Word, here's what's truth, here's what's man's tradition, that's not part of my Word, and here's what you're doing right and here's what you're doing wrong. And by the end of it, I just said, okay, Lord. And then I was watching TV, and I was channel surfing, and I came across TBN. And there's Paul Crouch with another pastor talking about the sinner's prayer. What it is, what it does, how to say it. And he said, we're going to kneel down here on the platform, and you at home in your bedroom, which is where I was, if you want to kneel down and say this with us. And I did. And I said the sinner's prayer. And so now at that point, I say I was a little embryo Christian.
Let's stop here a minute, because we don't want to confuse something with maybe somebody listening right now. There was something more than just a prayer here. There was a broken, just abased heart. Your spirit, you were totally crushed.
That was it, yeah.
And you realized that you were at a dead-end road, and you were dead in your sin.
Yep, and again, just trying to do life in your own flesh. I don't know how people do it in their own strength. I mean, I was there, and I've been through some stuff, medical issues and stuff, in the last 4 years. That if I didn't have Jesus and only had to depend on the doctor's word and what he told me, I would have been in serious emotional trouble. So yeah, it was God. I literally just said, and I prayed after. I just said, God, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I give myself to you. Here's the wheel. You drive. I don't know. So I'm going to be a passenger. So anyway, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go back to New York, and Bob and I are going to start going to couples counseling, and we're going to start going to church, and it's all going to be fine. I hadn't gotten to the don't live with the guy thing yet, but cut me some slack. I'm a little embryo Christian now. And long story short, Bob wasn't coming to the party. So he and I broke up in January of 96, and I got a better deal. I lost the boyfriend, but I got Jesus. And I went on with God. And it's funny because before then, if you had told me you're going to wind up living in a little town called Ridgway in southwest Colorado running a ministry, I would have said you're on drugs.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, too, Victoria, we mentioned that this ministry has been an outreach to young people.
Yep.
And I think this is really the heartbeat here of this whole campaign that you're on right now when it comes to Cosmopolitan magazine,
Yep.
which we want to talk about.
Yep.
Because it's young people here that are being violated. It's
Exactly.
young people here that are at risk at the expense of some pretty big coffers, to make a lot of money. And as we've already mentioned, the hundreds of newspapers and media outlets that your grandfather started, including the magazine Cosmopolitan magazine.
Yeah, we have 21 magazines. Harper's Bazaar, Esquire, Town and Country, etc.
I read an article in the Cosmopolitan, or actually read an article where you were quoted about the Cosmopolitan magazine, and you say, and this is what I'm hoping, you tell me if this is what you said, Cosmopolitan is not a lifestyle magazine for women. No. It's a smutty, pornographic, erotic tabloid whose prominent place in supermarket aisles is corrupting our children at this very moment.
Yeah, the thing is with Cosmopolitan, I'm going to hold just this cover picture up for your camera. I hope you can all see that. This is what Cosmopolitan magazine looks like. They allege that their demographic is 18 to 45, but they're always putting teen and tween idols on the covers. Miley Cyrus, this has Scarlett Johansson, and other young actresses, young singers that clearly, appeal to the teen and tween market. It is not. It touts itself as a women's lifestyle magazine. Their motto is that they want their readers to be fun, fearless females, while they promote a lifestyle that is dangerous, that is depraved, that is psychologically, emotionally, and physically damaging.
Is that a new term now? I'm hearing that a lot now, this fearless, and a lot of females are getting tattoos, and is that a new thing now among teenagers or young women?
That's what Cosmo promotes. And they're fun. Let's put it this way. Cosmopolitan magazine is against everything that God stands for. If it's moral, if it's, marriage between a man and a woman, if it's God's law and God's word, they hate it. They promote swinger sex. They promote group sex. They promote all kinds of deviant sexual activity. They promote going up and picking up strange men and having sex with them. You want to talk about being fearless? You better hope you come back alive. You better hope you don't get human trafficked, raped, murdered, kidnapped. It's outrageous. STDs that will either kill you or you'll have to live with for the rest of your life. It's really unbelievable. So the copy of this one, the cover of the magazine always has the word sex on it. And mind you, this magazine's been doing this since 1965. It was originally published in 1896, called The Cosmopolitan. It was produced by another publishing company. My grandfather bought it in 1906. It was a women and family magazine. Grandpa, added literature and some political things to it, but it stayed a society women's magazine until 1965 when it started, the circulation started to go downhill. I remember, hearing my dad and others saying, what are we going to do with this? They called Grandpa the old man. This is the old man's first magazine. We don't really want to, what should we do? Should we shut it down? So at that point, the devil provided a woman called Helen Gurley Brown. Now, some of you may not know her and some of you may. She wrote a book called Sex and the Single Girl, which basically portrayed her wonderful sexual freedom of using sex to get to the top. So the company gets the bright idea that we will hire Helen, this perverted woman, to be the editor-in-chief of the magazine and try and resurrect Cosmo. And Cosmopolitan magazine is nicknamed Cosmo. So she says, sure, as long as I can make it into my image and likeness. So what she does is she takes a clean magazine, a women's society fashion magazine, and turns it into a sex rag. It still has fashion. It still has makeup. It still has, little articles in it. But it has a section in every single magazine called Love and Lust. Lust. I mean, let's just call this what it is. Love and lust. And that section in every issue, every monthly issue, has sex positions, drawings of men and women in sex positions, describing it. This ain't education, okay? This is not sex ed. It has narratives of sexual activity, graphic narratives. Sometimes they'll have male models in it and do rear nudity with the man. It tells young women to go have sex in public, and then in parentheses it will say, "Don't get caught." They suggested that it would be really cool to have sex in public, and that the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland would be a good place to do it because you're in a boat in the dark.
Victoria, you have family members, I'm assuming, that are
Yes.
on the board of Cosmo. What has happened as you have taken this before the board, as you have taken your concerns before those who publish the magazine, some of which are your family members?
The Hearst, I wanted to say something really quickly. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't have a book. I'm not selling anything. I'm getting Zippo out of this. I'm getting exactly zero out of this. I'm spending my time and my money on this to keep pornography out of the hands of minors. I'm not trying to censor Cosmo. I am not trying to shut it down. What I'm trying to do is say, if you are going to publish this pornography and you will not label it adult material, because that is what I've asked them to do. And here's what the company does. Whenever it has an issue like this, they simply don't respond. I've not heard one word from them at all, period, on this. They just hope that if they don't respond, I'll go away. And when the press has finally gotten them to respond, they have given a stock answer, which is, Cosmopolitan magazine is the best-selling women's magazine in the world, and we promote relationships, meaning sex, and health and beauty, and then they wrap themselves in the flag and the First Amendment and say, and we have the First Amendment right to publish and display the magazine.
Really what we're talking about here is more than a magazine. We're talking about a culture battle from where we are today as a nation.
Yeah. This magazine isn't like Playboy or Penthouse. It's not just dirty pictures. This magazine says, this is cool, this is fun, this is fearless, go do it. And anyone who is against this is evil, bad, should be shunned. Anyone who does not agree with their depraved mind. And this is what Paul wrote in the book of Romans. Remember when he said, since they did not find it profitable to retain the word of God in their hearts, God gave them over to a depraved mind to do what ought not to be done. And this is what Cosmo does. It doesn't just... It's got a sex Q&A section where people write in graphic sexual questions and get graphic sexual answers. They provide, here's a sex toy you should buy to spice up your life. And here is the website you can go to. I've gone to a couple of those websites. There's no screening. There's nothing that says you should be 18 to get in here.
What has been the greatest obstacle so far as you have been spearheading this campaign? What's been the toughest thing for you to do?
Well, I've given up. The Hearst Corporation doesn't care. It's really sad. Dealing with them is pointless. So what I'm doing is two-pronged. I'm going to the public and informing them of what's in this magazine, and I'm going to the politicians and the district attorneys and the attorney generals and saying, here is your law. Now, fortunately, every state in the union has a pornography or a material harmful to minors law. And can I just read you quickly what Tennessee's law says?
There's one right here in Tennessee.
Yes. And it regards material like this being sold to minors, which is anyone obviously under 18. And on the display for sale part of the law, it says it is unlawful for a person to display for sale, and I'm reading the parts that apply to a magazine, to Cosmo. It is unlawful for a person to display for sale a visual depiction in a magazine that contains material harmful to minors anywhere minors are lawfully admitted. Now, Cosmo is right there in everybody's face at the checkout counter of every store that it's in. We did get Walmart to put Cosmo in a sleeve, and some other stores have done it as well, where you can only see the title of the magazine, but not the model, who is usually in a very low-cut outfit, and the word sex. And another word they used to use on the magazine, but they don't anymore. The magazine is to be placed in binder racks that cover the 2/3 of the material, which is what I'm talking about. And the viewing 1/3 is not harmful to minors. Cosmo, like I said, always has great sex this and great sex that and 81,000 ways to do this. It's got to be located. This is Tennessee law. Located at a height of not less than 5 1/2 feet from the floor. Reasonable steps must be taken to prevent minors from perusing or looking through the material. The material must be sealed, and if it contains material on its cover, which Cosmo does, that is harmful to minors, the low-cut sexy women on the covers and the word sex and sex and sex here and there. It must also be opaquely wrapped. The material must be placed out of sight underneath the counter, or it's located in an area where minors don't go. The sale law says it's unlawful to sell, otherwise exhibit, or make available to a minor any picture, photograph, or drawing, all of which Cosmo has, or similar visual representation or image of a person or portion of the human body that depicts nudity, which Cosmo does, sexual conduct, which Cosmo does, that is harmful to minors, or it is unlawful to sell any magazine that contains explicit and detailed narrative accounts of sexual excitement, sexual conduct, which Cosmo does, that's harmful to minors. And a violation of this is a Class A misdemeanor.
And that's the state of Tennessee.
Which is the top misdemeanor.
Real quickly, Victoria, other individuals and maybe companies that are helping support your cause right now?
I've got great support from the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. We're working together on this campaign. Like I said, Walmart has put the magazine in binders. But here's the problem. Walmart still sells it to minors. Any child who can see, and they don't even have to read, they can just see the sex positions and read, doesn't matter how young that kid is. If he or she has money, that child can pick that magazine out of a rack, walk up to the cashier and buy it and take it home and look through it. And right now, the stores don't know. The stores don't know that there's law against selling it to kids. They don't know what's in the magazine. Politicians I've spoken to don't even know what's in it because, again, it's not a Playboy or Penthouse that everybody knows about. Since it got changed to a sex rag, it's flown under the radar for years. So like I say, what I'm trying to do is make people aware, make these politicians and lawmakers aware, and have them enforce their laws against the magazine. It's not brain surgery. Tell the retailers it is illegal for you to sell this to minors. And I want to tell the parents and every concerned adult listening, this magazine is pornographic. Do not buy it for your children. If it is in the pediatrician's office on the coffee table, you're going to have to look through the magazine to show them what's what and show it to the doctor and say, this is pornography, and I don't want my child to come in here and pick this up. It's in the dentist's office. It's everywhere.
A social injustice that our listeners need to engage, need to be informed, and you're helping them do that here, right now. Is there a website or more information listeners can go to?
Yes. The website is called CosmoHarmsMinors.com. CosmoHarmsMinors.com. And you can see all of the exemplars of the material. And then you can see the people at the corporation that if you want to write letters. But the other thing to do would be to, if you go into a Walmart and that magazine is sitting there, tell the manager, this contains pornography. It's against the law in my state. Look up the laws in your state. All you have to do is Google your state name and material harmful to minors laws, Illinois. Material harmful to minors laws, Montana. Florida has a great one. I think Illinois got a good one. A lot of them have really good laws that say basically the same thing.
We have laws, like you said, already on our books, and it's a matter of making sure those laws are enforced.
Yep.
And if we do nothing, it only takes for evil to triumph. What does it take? For good
men to do nothing.
To do nothing.
Yep.
And so now, and here is the opportunity for listeners to do something good, to do something right, to do something for the sake of their children and their grandchildren.
Yeah. This magazine is poisonous. It is directly against God. It's giving children websites, information, pictures of sex toys and how to get them, sex videos, where to get them, sex books, where to get them. Live like this, be like this, act like this, be a fun, fearless female, live a totally debauched, depraved life. Do you know how psychologically, emotionally, and physically damaging that is to children? And I'm not the only one saying it. All of the experts have said early exposure to this kind of material is psychologically, emotionally, and physically damaging to children.
Victoria Hearst, thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing for Christ's kingdom for young people. And the positive, we didn't have a chance to talk about all the great things you're doing through.
Next time.
Next time. You'll have to come back. You're always welcome, okay? Come back and we'll talk about those things.
Thank you. And you all about radio are so kind to run my radio ads.
Well, we
informing people of this.
Thank you for using us as an outlet. We appreciate that. Friends, that's all the time we have on today's program here on Bot Radio Network. I'm Byron Tyler. Hey, thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.